Marla. That's fine. We got quorum. Oh. Okay. Okay. Fine, yeah. Okay, welcome, council, this afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting. Is there any conflict of interest amongst council members here tonight? Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the published agenda tonight. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? It's carried, and I guess we'll go right into the presentation from administration. I guess we'll go right to Lori first. Lori, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
I can hear you, Lori. Go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, Council, and hello, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is a special meeting of Council on the Climate Change Adaptation Plan. We are very proud to be a milestone of a position in the preparation of the plan. We're very excited to present you tonight with the plan. We're going to go through page by page, section by section, and walk you through the document, and then leave it with you to.
Is anyone else having trouble with her volume? Okay.
Yeah, Lori, we got problems with your communication. So. Try it again, Lori. There. She's not there. Is she not? Okay.
So, Your Worship, it's Chris speaking. Maybe just give her a minute to try and reconnect here, and then try again without her video. If you can, indulge her on that. If she can't connect, then I think she was, almost getting to the point where we were going to go through it slide by side. I know it's a lengthy report, but similar to the budget report, it's something that we wanted to give you that you could digest, have some time with it. And then we can come back and adopt or edit. So yeah, like I said, let's give her. Oh, she's on now. So maybe without the camera on, she might be able to be heard better. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks. Please. Problems. I think that Councillor Van Endolen's having some problems too. Are you, Councillor, having problems too?
Yeah, you were just silent for the last 30 seconds. I could see your mouth moving. I could see you pushing the button. I knew you were doing something. I couldn't hear anything until the last 10 words.
Mic off. Lori, can you try again, please? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to do my best here. Internet connection is unstable. I'm also joining via hotspot on my phone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'll keep it short and pass it to Naharka. Just wanted to pick up where I left off. The closing period for public comment will be February the 3rd. We will have a follow-up meeting to address questions and to address any comments that we do receive. And from here, we are very excited to walk you through it. And I guess that's it from me.
Sorry about the technical issues, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll go right to Naharka now. So if you're ready, you can go ahead with your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to share my screen so I could walk everybody through this report.
You should be able to go ahead and share that. Just click share.
Okay. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance today. So administration and counselors, I'm happy to be walking over this draft climate change adaptation plan with you today. As Lori mentioned, today is intended for you to get an introduction to this plan that we've been working on for over the past year. And I will go over it page by page with you, introduce you to the various segments of this plan, introduce you to the action items that we are endeavoring to undertake. And the idea is that once you are following today, you get time to digest it, review it, comment on it using the public feedback form we'll be making available, and send in your comments prior to the next meeting in February, where we will be discussing the adoption of this plan. It has been a...
Pardon me, Naharka, can you do me a favor and just back up from the mic a little bit because you're really
Okay.
muffled?
Okay.
Okay,
Is
it's
this
hard.
better?
It's hard to hear you. I can hear you, but you're very muffled.
Okay. So just to repeat briefly, if my audio is clearer now, I'd like to say that, today is to review, to look at this document for the first time and introduce it to you counselors and public as well. It has been a long, arduous process since this beginning in November 2019. However, after months of collaboration with administration and important key stakeholders of the community, we are excited to present this plan to you. I'll be walking you through the contents of the plan and their context within this report today. So if my audio is clear and if there are no more technical difficulties to resolve, I'd like to present to you Climate Ready, a climate change adaptation plan for the town of Essex for the period of 2021 to 2026. This is, of course, the draft version that we will be presenting to you today. So moving along, the first few sections are the basic components of a report. We do acknowledge all of the work from all of our stakeholders, our administration, residents, and town council that went into the creation of this plan. And we also would like to acknowledge the funding and support received from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities through the Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program. Next page is a brief address to how to use this document. We believe that this is intended to inspire both town administration and the community in collaboratively working towards addressing local climate issues. So we have a small legend here for members of council, administration, stakeholders, as well as members of the public as how this data can be used and referred to for the next 5 years. Following that is a brief table of contents, and I'd like to make point out that we have interspersed this document with several images of the town and municipality in a way to proudly show off our efforts that have adaptation and mitigation strategies that have already been accomplished by several sectors, as well as to show off some town pride. We move along to the next page where in further detail, we list out everybody who was involved in the creation of this document. The internal climate adaptation team consisted of representatives from every division of the town. The Essex Climate Adaptation Team, which is an ad hoc committee of council, consisted of 14 members, including Councillor Verbeek. And we could have also not have done this without the support of our important stakeholders from the Essex Region Conservation Authority and the City of Windsor. So moving on to the core parts of this document today, we start off with an executive summary. So this is essentially a 2-page summary of the contents of this entire document, briefly addressing the evolving climate crisis, how and provides a brief context for why we have endeavored to embark on this journey of starting action items within the town about addressing local concerns about and how the projections of these changes worsen as we advance into the century. We make a brief note about how our endeavors align with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, specifically Goal 13, which is climate action. And we also provide a brief summary of our process, of the objectives within this plan, of our overall themes that we are working towards, and also make mention briefly of how we plan to monitor progress and update council as we move into the next 5 years. And then following that, we have messages from the mayor and the chief administrative officer, and collectively they address members of the town as well as all of our readers on how it's important that we unite and collaboratively work towards turning this vision into a reality, and as well as how the plan is very much in line with the strategic goals of the town of Essex. So this page is where we begin with an introduction to climate science and the context for creating an adaptation plan. It's divided into 3 parts: an explanation of the basic climate science, climate projections for the town of Essex, and ongoing and expected climate impacts. Just a reminder that we've covered the information in here in previous presentations to council, so I'll be providing just a brief summary today. And I'd like to start off by saying that Canada is warming at about double the rate of global warming caused by the rapid rise of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Owing to the heat trapping nature of greenhouse gases, temperatures are rising across the world, causing existing climate systems above land and sea and below as well to change rapidly. While global warming refers to the larger phenomena of Earth's average temperature rise, climate change is a result of it. We are experiencing these changes across towns and cities in the world and here at home as well. In the next segment, we talk about what climate projections are and what climate impacts are. So climate projections are those factors that essentially capture the relationship between human activities, greenhouse gas emissions, global natural cycles, and temperature changes, which determine seasonal patterns and the average climate conditions in any specific region. In Essex, the overall projection gets warmer, wetter, and wilder as we move further into the century. And all of this data was derived from thorough analysis and research from Environment and Climate Change Canada, the Computer Research Institute of Montreal, the Prairie Climate Center, and the Essex Conservation Authority, as well as associated partners. All the data derived has been based on 99% scientific consensus, and we are basing all of our action items based on the advice by scientists and policymakers. What are climate impacts? That is the next segment on here. Basically, we want to say that climate impacts arise from changes in climatic systems that alter social, economic, physical, and environmental systems. They are unique to every region and municipality. For the town of Essex, we determine climate impacts through comprehensive consultations with town administration, who each provided information based on their division's subject matter expertise, as well as key community stakeholders. We also combine the research being done by the Essex Region Conservation Authority, like I previously mentioned. We also have a segment here on the right, which talks about the relationship between COVID-19 and climate change. It's important to note that this plan was created during the unfurling of a global health crisis, which we're still grappling with. We saw the administration and the community rise to many challenges like timely resource development and response, consistent and effective communication, proper education and awareness, all of which are parallels with climate change adaptation. We believe that the lessons learned from this pandemic and the resilience built from responding to COVID-19 will be vital in helping strengthen our community in a cleaner, greener, safer, and more equitable manner. So moving on, the next page, we delve into the projections specifically for the town of Essex. What is causing the region to get warmer, wetter, and wilder in terms of projections? We've laid out descriptors, and each descriptor has been divided into subvariables, which are the projections. Just a reminder again that this information was already presented to council, so I'll briefly scroll through it. On average, seasonal temperatures will go up, average precipitation will increase annually, and specifically during springtime and summer. And we will see a tremendous increase in storm events, as well as wave action along the Lake Erie shoreline. Lake levels will experience higher highs and lower lows, but data is variable and uncertain for a longer time scale. The next page, we have made a list of climate impacts. Now, what are again, as I described earlier, climate impact statements basically are statements that present the economic, social, environmental consequences of these climatic changes in our region. Through a thorough exercise of vulnerability and risk assessments with town staff and community stakeholders, we devised a list of 60 impacts, which we further prioritized based on current system resilience levels, the current level of risk that each department and sector has, and the urgency of action that is required on our end. So here we've highlighted 20 of the top priorities in terms of impacts. But the full list will be made online on essex.ca/climate-ready following tonight's presentation. Overall, we're talking about a decreased use of outdoor spaces and outdoor recreation and increased demand on indoor activities, cooling centers. We will see an increase in summer temperatures with a decrease of summer rainfall leading to decreased wetland habitat and biodiversity. Milder winter temperatures leading to more ice and freezing rain and less snow, resulting in infrastructure damage and public safety. We also have increased flooding, erosion, leading to changes in land uses and where new development can occur. We have also addressed increased stress, pollution, and damage to public and private infrastructure from urban flooding and soil erosion overall. And where it becomes wilder, we talk about how increased roadway flooding, debris, damaged infrastructure will limit safe access to less accessible communities for emergency personnel, as well as lead to increased costs to rehabilitate. So as I mentioned earlier, these are just some of the impacts. The entire list is available for your review following this, and I'm happy to answer any further questions that you may have after tonight's meeting. And on the next page, we have a few examples of what climate change impacts have looked like in the past. Now, these are not pretty images because we saw flooding in fields across the municipality, delaying planting seasons for many farmers in 2019. It's not a one-time occurrence. We are seeing that variable and more extreme variability in weather patterns is causing unpredictability for farmers and agriculture in the region in general. We saw intense storm events resulting in flooded residential streets. Algae blooms are specifically concerning because they are becoming larger and more toxic in nature, and their toxicity is spreading across Lake Erie. We also look at intense wave action causing degrading to harbor infrastructure, as well as heat causing damage to roadway infrastructure during heat wave periods, as well as cold snaps on the other extreme causing issues like grave bud frost, damaging crops and affecting our wineries locally. So having discussed the not so pretty picture with you for the past few minutes, I want to next move on to the strategies in place to manage climate risks. Now, there are two key ways of dealing with climate change, mitigation versus adaptation. And it is very important that we stress on the differences between this. This report is an adaptation plan, which means the goal of the action items is primarily to reduce the damages caused by climate impacts. Actions to reduce emissions and greenhouse gases are important, but they would be tackled in the mitigation plan, which is not the primary goal of this plan. Now, we also talk about the differences between mitigation, what constitute mitigation action items, what constitute adaptation action items, and the nice in between where both of them can be addressed via some action items. Now, the reason why we embarked on taking an adaptation plan is because we choose to address the more urgent issues at hand and develop a strategy to reduce the damages that they have been causing to municipal and community infrastructures. We are invested into a regional energy plan through our participation in the Essex County Regional Energy Plan with sister municipalities, the County of Essex, and local industry. That is developing on the regional level as we speak, which this would help us address some of our mitigation needs. However, today you can expect to see more action items geared towards adaptation. And the benefits and challenges of adaptation planning are something that we're also not strangers to. We did talk about how the benefits are to reduce vulnerability, create opportunities, reduce long-term costs, and mitigate risk. The challenges do pertain to the degree of uncertainty and the severity of projections. Even though we know that the storms are going to get more intense, we don't know the exact time and place of landfall. We also sometimes may only see the benefits of advanced planning when impacts occur. And a challenge might also be to, whenever we are when we do require to procure support and resources, we might be facing some challenges there as well. And the next section addresses the role of the Corporation of the Town of Essex. We want to make sure that we emphasize that we have a duty of care towards the safety, health, and overall wellness of our residents and communities. Owing to the City of Windsor and the County of Essex declaring climate emergencies in 2019, it becomes imperative that we recognize that our region is prioritizing climate action on all levels. And it is a high priority in regional decision making. So, on the onset of showing you the rest of the plan, I want to say that all action items that have been proposed in this plan are accommodated into current and ongoing policies, procedures, and processes, like the town's official plan, the strategic plan, bylaws, policies, and practices. The next segment talks about the methodology and developing a strategy. So basically, how did we get here? We discussed that we followed the framework recommended by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which is a 5-milestone framework process. Through 2019 to today, we went through the first 3 phases, and following adoption by council, we will move on to the last 2, which will be implementation and the monitor/review of the plan. The next page just talks about how our framework on the bottom here and the various steps that we took for the first 3 parts of the 5-milestone framework fall in line with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities recommended strategy. It is worthy to know that throughout this process of consultation, the stakeholders of represented on the Essex Climate Adaptation team and the internal administrative representatives of the internal climate adaptation team were core people involved in creating and providing feedback and developing the action items. The Essex Climate Adaptation team helped us with the community aspect of objective and action item planning. So they helped us create community engagement and partnership objectives. And the internal climate adaptation team invested their knowledge and input towards creating corporate objectives and corporate action items. And I will be describing these in a little more, in much further detail on the following pages. So at this point, I would like to say that so far we've addressed the context, we've created a context and a background for the creation of this plan. We've talked about how the methodology has panned out and how we followed various steps in procuring information and input. And from this point onwards, what we will show to you is the result of this process and what we propose in terms of tackling climate impacts within the municipality. So to get that started, I would like to present to you the vision for the Climate Ready, which is the town of Essex will adapt to changing climate conditions and embrace new opportunities for a healthy, vibrant, and sustainable community benefiting residents, businesses, and visitors. So this vision was developed with the consultation again of the ECAT and senior management and ICAT as well. And this is the overall direction that all objectives and action items will be working towards. And then following that, we have on this page, we're introduced to the objectives for this plan. So while the vision encapsulates the purpose and the mission of Climate Ready, the objectives help define the overall themes and give direction to turning our vision into reality. We define two sets of objectives. The first, the community engagement and partnership objectives, and the second, corporate objectives. Each objective within these will reflect a theme and contain action items within them. And action items under both objectives are to be executed and accomplished by the town administration. Where they differ are the mechanisms for implementation and the ultimate target of the actions. Community engagement and partnership objectives are intended to be accomplished in partnership with stakeholders, other public entities, and residents in order to promote an overall culture of sustainability and resilience in the town. The actions here are meant to support, enhance, help, and encourage preservation and resilience. So within these, we identified 6 objectives. Alternatively, action items under corporate objectives pertain to internal climate resilience. Services, operations, utilities, and assets the town has direct authority and control over. We have identified 5 objectives here. Now, it's important to note that all action items under each objective were developed, sorted, and prioritized by weighting their contributions to the cost of inaction. We wanted to see how equitable each action item would be. We wanted to see if each action item had ancillary or co-benefits. How many different ways would it provide benefits outside of climate adaptation? We wanted to see if there were windows of opportunities identified, if there were funding sources, and if there was internal capacity that could support the execution of these action items. So with that, I'd like to delve into the parameters that we will be using to hold these action items accountable. So first of all, it is important to note that we also developed a set of 7 guiding principles, which are underlying principles that will ensure that we prioritize the health and safety of residents while implementing all of the action items, that we are motivated to build awareness about climate risks, that we will use latest climate projections and scientific information to guide our actions, that we endeavor to collaborate and leverage community partnerships as pertinent to the process, that we endeavor to deliver a high quality of service throughout, that we will exercise a duty of care to ensure the well-being of the citizens, and that measurable quantifiable data indicators will be used to monitor the implementation throughout the process. We've established timelines for the implementation of various actions. They range from current to long-term, as well as ongoing action items. So current action items will range from, are intended to start in 2021 to 2022. Short-term are from 2023 to 2024, long-term for 2025 to 2026, and ongoing action items that are those that have already been initiated and will be developed through the course of Climate Ready. We also have 4 brackets for cost. A single dollar sign is a low cost option, just $0 to $25,000. A double dollar sign is $25,000 to $50,000. A triple dollar sign for over $50,000 of additional investment. And the blanks is the bracket for all of those action items where the cost is incorporated within the current operating and capital budget, or can be expected to be incorporated with an ongoing operating and capital budgets in future years. On the next page, we have themes and lead department. Now, themes are quantified, basically mechanisms that have been assigned to every action item, which provide information on, again, the mechanism and the tools we'll use to implement any action item. And those are policy, process, communication, and physical. So will a said action item be implemented by a change in policy? Will there be an internal process change? Does this involve a project or a strategy around communication that needs to be created? Or is it a physical project pertaining to construction or maintenance of physical infrastructure? And finally, we have the lead department category, which indicates the lead department within the town that would take the lead on any action items, commencement, development, and implementation. They may include other departments as well, but the lead department would set the primary direction and get the ball rolling on the project essentially. So following that, let's get into discussing, firstly, the community engagement and partnership objectives.
Mr. Mayor, Joe Guerin lost connection. Can somebody let him back in, please? Okay, thanks. Let's see if it works.
Lost, are you in now, Joe? Okay.
Yep,
I
I'm
think-
in.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Thanks.
Okay, so this is the landing page for the community engagement and partnership objectives. To reiterate, we have 6 of these objectives that each discuss a different theme. And they range from supporting health and safety and wellness to building community engagement and participation in the climate change adaptation process. So objective 1 is...
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Anoy.
What is a
Go ahead.
landing page? That's completely baffling to me. What does a landing page mean?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, essentially it's just the first page to get the discussion, to start an introduction to the rest of the objectives, the community engagement and partnership objectives.
Well, the phrase doesn't make any sense, but okay, thanks.
Go ahead, continue.
So objective 1, support the enhancement of the health, safety, and quality of life of the town of Essex community. All of the action items under this objective are directed towards building overall wellness and safety of the community and supporting action items of other objectives as well. We want to support the retention of the quality of life within the town and also build on the lack of awareness of existing adaptation measures that we have noticed throughout the process of consultation. You will see a variety of action items within them. Again, I will go over them briefly to you for your benefit. We endeavor to carry out these action items with participation from the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, the Essex Region Conservation Authority, event organizers, vendors, and other relevant stakeholders. So for example, the first action item is to integrate climate change messaging into the town's communication strategy. And we have an upcoming project with the county health unit, which is a regional project that they are directing towards climate change, common climate change messaging within the Windsor Essex region. So we do want to participate in that and contribute to it as well. And the rest of the action items include developing a checklist for event organizers that provide flexible and climate adaptive options like shade tents, water trucks. So events that are held outside during the summer and early spring are adapted to changing and variable weather and allow for vendors to be able to make use of these options. And overall, the cost of these are either already incorporated within the current operating and capital budget or are low cost options. They're also, the timeline on these are up to, are ongoing, are current and short term. And the lead departments on these are primarily the CAO's office and community services. Objective 2 is geared towards encouraging the preservation of the natural environment and enhancing green cover, and also helping people connect better with existing greenscapes in the community. So within this, we identify the major stakeholders to be the Essex Region Conservation Authority, any other not-for-profit land managers, businesses, and residents as well. We want to perform action items like identifying opportunities and sites to create and protect natural assets within the town. We want to be able to recognize and incorporate heat island data, use publicly available information to assess how much green cover we already have, and use that in our policy and planning to augment our current strategies. And we also want to label and recognize heritage trees so we help people better connect to the existing greenscapes around them. The second part of this is to explore and engage in regional partnerships to improve various regional environmental quality issues. We expect the partnerships on these to be more at the county level, where we want to support the development and implementation of policies on controls on non-native invasive species, participate in regional efforts to develop tree-cutting bylaws, and also in the improvement of overall Lake Erie water quality issues. We recognize that this is where we have to work together, and combined efforts will lead to benefits overall within the region and specifically to the town of Essex as well. And the approximate costs within this section are either low or can be incorporated within the existing operational or capital budget. And the timeline is either ongoing for some actions and need enhancement, or can be expected to be delivered within the short term. So the next section the next page has two objectives. The first one of which is to minimize risk to private buildings and property. The idea of this is that for all of the property that is not owned by the town of Essex, i.e. the private property, we want to support and promote green infrastructure. We want to promote minimizing risk from climate impacts to these to developers, builders, and regional municipality land. We also want to encourage them to reduce the impacts of flooding and extreme heat, and these are all primarily policy-based action items. So we talk about establishing low impact development practices, and that would be policy generated. This is something that is already ongoing through the revision of the Development Standards Manual. And we also talk about having regional collaborations with the county, the city of Windsor, and municipalities on developing policies on green infrastructure and guidelines as well. So the approximate cost is incorporated within the current operating budget, and the timeline for this is ongoing because several projects were commenced within the last year, and will be developed further into the implementation of Climate Ready. Objective 4 is to support opportunities for investment into adaptation-based innovation for local business. We identified for this objective that the town can provide vital support in economy and innovation-based activities within the community. While some actions like grant and loan assistance are ongoing efforts that will be enhanced, others are geared towards our vital participation in community-driven initiatives like the establishment of a regional climate business incubator program, etc. The costs are either low or ongoing or are already incorporated, and the timeline for them range from ongoing to current, which would be mean implementation within this year or the next. And objective 5 is to help advocate for community emergency preparedness. We emphasize on strengthening community emergency preparedness and building more resilient social infrastructure during the time of extreme climate impacts. We will be partnering with the county and community volunteer groups and also invite participation from stakeholders that want to help strengthen community resilience for some of these action items. Other action items in this category are geared towards enhancing existing events and developing targeted communications for cultural programming like Seniors Day or Emergency Preparedness Week. Again, the costs for these are bracketed in the are incorporated within the ongoing operational and capital budgets, or they are low. And the timeline for most of these are ongoing, and these will be developed throughout the process of Climate Ready. Objective 6 is to promote community engagement, and this is the last objective, promoting community engagement and participation in climate change awareness and adaptation opportunities. We were made aware throughout the process of the creation of this document that the community is eager to participate and want more hands-on opportunities to be a part of building climate resilience. So exploring opportunities like utilizing surplus land to creating community green spaces, having more educational campaigns with community attendance are some of the action items that we are interested in carrying out. We also want to advocate for cross-jurisdictional resource sharing and partnerships on climate adaptation, as we've noticed that siloed approaches are we would like to have more collaborative approaches towards mitigating the impacts of climate change in the region and reduce redundancies in terms of data management and data accumulation. So the approximate cost within this does range. So we have low cost, we both identified the low cost options, but the high cost bracket that has been identified, we just want to make sure that they're identified for every project. So again, the cost depends on each project that is implemented or created by various departments. So with that, we complete our summaries on the community engagement and partnership objectives, and we move on to our 5 corporate objectives. Now, these were developed by primary input from administration and senior management on current issues and expected future needs. So within this, we have 5 objectives. The first is to enhance staff health and safety. Now, the focus is to increase staff resilience and help them adapt to climate impacts on an ongoing basis. We emphasize on providing enhanced personal protective equipment for outdoor workers as different various environments demand. For example, providing uniforms with more breathable fabrics for hotter days, etc. We also talk about the inclusion of a green tips segment on the staff newsletter, as well as the creation of a new staff green team that will support ongoing sustainability efforts within the town itself. And the approximate cost can be incorporated within the current operating and capital budget. And the timeline for that is current, which means they will be implemented before 2022. The second objective on this page is to protect the town's natural assets and emphasize nature-based solutions. Pertains to the protection of town-owned natural heritage green spaces and adopting nature-based solutions for town infrastructure issues. We want to ensure tree and plant species are resilient and native by updating our tree policy, develop a buffer strip policy to reduce drainage-related issues within the town, incorporate the EARNS database, which is the Essex Regional Natural Heritage System, which provides information on all of the important environmentally sensitive areas, and we want to make sure we incorporate that within the town's policy and planning processes. And we also want to investigate vegetation-based techniques to mitigate erosion wherever possible. So the approximate cost for these action items are, again, incorporated on average into the current operating and capital budgets, or are low for the last action item. And the timeline for these range from ongoing to long-term based on each individual action item. Objective number 3 is to build and strengthen the town's infrastructure resilience. So here we talk about infrastructure and assets owned by the town to ensure the resilience of a property that is on the front line of impacts. We want to explore the implementation of a storm sewer surcharge in response to extreme flooding, investigate the development of a rain barrel subsidy program geared towards residents. And the next couple segments talk about incorporating low impact development practices that would reduce the amount of runoff into our storm sewers, drains, and ditches. Integrating the regional stormwater guidelines that were published regionally recently, and considering green technology options for road development reconstruction projects. Now, the approximate cost on these range from whether they can be incorporated within the current operating or capital budget to medium to high cost based on individual projects. Now, these, a key thing to note is that their efforts are already in place to constantly integrate low impact development and green infrastructure options. What this plan contributes to is giving it direction and providing accountability in terms of carrying these out in the future. So we don't propose new capital projects in this segment. The proposal is to enhance existing and new capital projects with green infrastructure considerations. In the next segment, we talk about integrating climate change adaptation into town planning and policy making. So here we believe that considerations into ongoing municipal policies and policymaking procedures will allow the town to be strategically and fiscally proactive in protecting all of its operations, service deliveries, assets against climate change impacts and their associated consequences. We want to begin by identifying a climate change adaptation champion to represent climate change initiatives at the town and lead outreach activities. Consider declaring a town-wide climate emergency to be in line with county and federal climate action interests. And we also talk about incorporating climate change considerations into ongoing town plans, policies, and projects. Example, during revisions and amendments of these documents, we want to incorporate climate change language. We want to be able to do a financial, social, environmental cost and benefit analysis when making project decisions. So a single project can deliver ancillary benefits and have multiple co-benefits. And we also talk about conducting a vulnerability and risk assessment using climate considerations for all town divisions on a 5-year basis. As data and provisions constantly change, we want to make sure we keep up with the dynamic nature of climate change adaptation. So the approximate cost of most of these action items can be incorporated within the current operating and capital budget. The timeline is estimated to be current or short term, and the lead departments vary from the CAO's office to almost all of the departments at the town. And finally, our last objective is to build community services tempered to climate change impacts. We deliver a lot in terms of cultural programming and virtual tourism, and we also have services and processes in place that are generally service deliveries in their nature. So the action items in this section are towards investigating, modifying season start, end, and duration dates for general event programming schedules wherever possible. We want to introduce more fall season outdoor programming because the projection is that on average, fall and early winter are to be warmer and milder. And we want to continue developing virtual tourism. We also want to consider incorporating complete street design, which is roadways that can accommodate all types of transportation modes and provide easy access to green spaces for diverse commuters wherever possible. The approximate cost on all of these action items are either incorporated within the current operating or capital budget or are low cost. And the timeline is either ongoing or short term. So with that, we complete the action item proposition part of this document. It was really the crux of the climate change adaptation plan. And it is important, again, to mention that they've been developed from the advice and knowledge of stakeholders like the representatives from various divisions at the town, as well as community stakeholders represented by ECAT. We also wanted to highlight, so within the next segment, which is climate action in the town of Essex, the ongoing efforts that administration has taken throughout the years in being proactive. We have multiple services and programs in place that already provide residents with options to be more climate resilient. And these are some examples of them. For example, development of the Seawatts route, which is an 800-kilometer county-wide active transportation system that promotes low-carbon transportation and healthy lifestyles. We also, on the next page, mention, and it was quite surprising to me to find out that a lot of people are not aware of our downspout disconnection and basement flooding subsidy programs that we've been offering for a few years. We've implemented both of those, and also highlight the fact that our floating dock in the Windsor, our floating dock is highly resistant to the varying levels of water in the lake. So these are just 4 examples of climate actions that we've already taken within the town. And within the appendix, we provided a whole list of continuing and ongoing, completed and ongoing action items that are being supported and have been. And next we come to implementation, monitoring, and review. So following council adoption of this plan, the town will immediately commence the implementation of Climate Ready as we recognize the importance of urgent and timely action. We will incorporate action items into plans, policies, and procedures, and within the identified timelines, costs, and assigned lead departments will be taking the helm on these projects and ensuring their execution. Essentially here we provide sort of a guide to what this will look like. So following council adoption, we want to implement, monitor, provide regular updates to council, and plan to revise in 2026. On this page, we talk about what it is that we propose to do to maintain transparency and provide timely updates. We want to monitor progress by providing a list of indicators in Appendix D. So what indicators are metrics that will be used to measure the progress of any given climate action item within this report. They can be roughly categorized into 4 broad categories, which are annual reporting, relevant changes to municipal administrative functions, policies, and practices, completed and ongoing progress of partnership initiatives, and documented community interest and participation. So the list of indicators is quite thorough and quite extensive, and it is placed within the appendix of this document. And we will be using those indicators to so for the departments to create annual reports and report to council on the successes and accomplishment of the action items assigned to various departments. It is also mentioned that divisions and departments will internally provide updates to senior management every quarter. The review and update segment here addresses why this plan was created for a 5-year period and what is to come after. Again, building community resilience and preparing for climate impacts is a dynamic process. Scientists are constantly improving data projection systems, and new provisions and systems are being developed on the federal, provincial, and regional areas as well. And in order to keep up with these changes, we also want to make sure that the data within this plan is updated and made consistent with the changes around us. There is a segment which talks about opportunities for future action, and the reason why some of these action items weren't included in the current plan is because while we have the intention to make progress on this end, the systems that currently exist aren't in place for us to carry out these action items. So for example, examining municipal projects and assets that can be used as offset credits for federal carbon taxes. We don't have enough information on that end from both the federal and provincial level in order to do that properly. But as soon as the information becomes available within the next 5 years, these are some considerations to be taken into account for administration to implement these. And finally, we come to the end of this document. We conclude by addressing all the readers and restating that it's a combined effort that will take for us to reach the success in all of these goals and action items. At the community level, the challenges are to ensure against future risks. And at the corporate level, it is to make sure that we protect the community and we enhance resilience wherever we can and do good by the duty of care that we have towards our residents. We have a list of references, and you may have noticed that there are certain phrases and terms that have been bolded within the document. Those provide explanations in the appendix. So it's all the bolded items have been defined and explained within the appendix. Appendix B is the BARC milestone framework, which is the full Federation of Canadian Municipality recommended approach to creating a climate change adaptation plan. Appendix C is a list of continuing and completed action items. And Appendix D is a list of indicators that I had briefly talked about earlier for each objective and for each action item. And with that, I'd like to thank all the councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Senior Administration, for attending my presentation of this report. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments on this report following this. Thank you.
Very much for the presentation. Before we get into questions, I'll need a motion to accept the presentation, please. Could I get a motion to Councillor Bowman, and I need a seconder, please. Councillor Guerin. All in favor? It's carried. Now I'll open it up to council for any questions. Go ahead, council. Any questions? Go ahead. Mayor?
Well, thank you. Through you, Your Worship, just to Marka, that was a great report. A lot of detail in there, and it's going to take a couple of reads through to make sure that we understand it fully. And same with our administration. I'm sure that they'll understand what we need to do. But I do like the idea of how we push it through the system is to have each department take a portion of the lead in this to try and bring forward the different parts that their departments can help out in adapting the different measures that we need to provide for. One of the things that I noticed in here too was things that we can do to have our community be involved in ensuring that we put these measures in place as quick as possible. And I have some ideas moving forward too that, you know, like for example, perhaps having a certain dollar amount in our budget that's afforded to tax reductions for businesses, perhaps in their property taxes for providing green roofing or white roof, etc. So I'm sure that there's other communities that have already initiated some of these types of opportunities, and hopefully we can, rather than recreate the whole scheme of what we want to do, we can look at some of what other communities have already done, some that are the leading edge communities, and hopefully we can be one of those leading edge communities as well in moving forward. So thank you again, great report, and I think it's going to take a couple of reads for me anyway to try and make sure I absorb all of this. Thanks.
Mayor Malash, any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Oh, okay.
Yep. There's one here.
No, go ahead.
What is the closest town to Essex, which agreed to take this money and is doing a similar study?
Go ahead, Harka.
Go ahead. Can you answer that, please?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the city of Windsor, it is a town which is undertaking the study, but there are various other towns and municipalities, all of Chatham-Kent, Sarnia, Huron County, various Peterborough, various towns, Lincoln, within the Niagara region as well, smaller towns the size of us, with 20,000 strong people, have committed to creating this climate change adaptation plan. So my fellow FCM colleagues are waiting for their respective councils to also pass climate change plans within this time period.
Thank you. And also, how much is the storm sewage surcharge going to be? Does this mean you're going to be charging people, we're going to be charging people, or how much rainfall there is?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this time, administration will look into exploring the implementation of storm sewer surcharge. The idea is to start looking into the possibility. Nothing, this project or the plan isn't going to adopt the implementation of one yet. It is simply to start exploring various options.
Thank you.
Anything
I just have
further?
to say as a general observation that it just makes me nervous that there's no numbers. This is obviously going to be very far ranging. It's going to have wide implications for the town. And it's very concerning to me that there's no such thing as a number or a cost. And the cost, I think I heard the word incorporated about 20 or 30 times, incorporated in the budget, or can be incorporated in the budget. Well, anything can be incorporated in the budget. So I'm really suspicious about the cost of this. And I just want to put that on the record that it makes me very nervous. Thank you.
Councillor, anybody else from council? Councillor Verbeek, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just want to again thank Naharka and team. They did an excellent job. You know, and I'm really grateful for the document, but I just wanted to kind of touch on what our deputy mayor said, and Naharka will back me up on this. I'm really big on the incentive idea for big and small scale, but to encourage our residents to start, taking on the changes that we're experiencing from the global warming in the form of climate change, right? And there's a lot of little things that we can do individually on our own properties, and having the town participate in little and large incentive programs. I'm really glad that you touched on that, Mr. Deputy Mayor, because I'm all for, and then on a bigger scale, maybe incentives are somehow encouraging our larger entities to get involved with the green and the white roofing and such too. So thank you again to Naharka and team.
Or anybody else from council? Okay, thank you once again. I want to thank you for the good presentation. A lot of info there, and I agree with Deputy Mayor. It's going to take a few days. I'll probably have to go through it 2 or 3 times to have it all really sink in, but there's a lot of good information there. And I'm one that strongly believes in climate change. So it was a great report. Thank you much.
Mr. Mayor, may I add one thing? This is Lori.
Lori?
Thank you. Hopefully I won't have any tech issues. I just wanted to close with special thanks to administration. The entire town really played a role in this. I also would like to just remind folks that we're accepting comments, questions in the form of a web form. So the web form will be made live tomorrow. I will send out the link, and those questions and comments, again, will be accepted till about February the 3rd. We will then be coming back to council on or around February 8th to be determined and confirmed with the clerk's division for a follow-up special meeting to address your questions, to address any comments, and to hopefully move this thing one more step forward prior to its adoption. So thank you once again, Mr. Mayor and Council, and those of members of the public that are tuning in.
Any other questions from council? No. Okay. Before we end the meeting, I just want to bring forward a little bit of information. I had an email today from Minister Clark. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow of all heads of council at 5 o'clock, and it's to do with the rollout of the vaccines for COVID. So when I get that information, I will be sharing that with all the council. And once again, I say it at every meeting now, please be careful. We've had large breakouts of this COVID in the south end, in the Harrow end. There's a lot of COVID there. And please follow the protocol from the senior level of government, please. Thank you. And I'll need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Verbeek and Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much, Councillor.